Did Ryan Reynolds ditch Blake Lively at the premiere of Another Simple Favor to save his own career?
Strangers describe me as extremely disloyal.
That's so gross and weird and manipulative.
Welcome to CB Rush, the place where Hollywood's brightest stories meet their sharpest twists. Here, we don't just cover the headlines, we break down the drama with clarity and edge. Before we get into today's case, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you never miss a single update. Now, on to the story. Ryan Reynolds understood the weight of the moment more than anyone. He knew that lingering in the wrong spotlight could put his career and reputation at risk. And with Blake Lively facing increasing scrutiny in the industry, his every move carried consequences. The stakes weren't just personal, they were public, and the world was watching.
Ryan and Blake both now realize if their careers are to survive, they cannot be involved in the same projects because everything will be heavily.
So, where exactly was Ryan Reynolds? That was the question echoing across the press line as Blake Lively stepped onto the red carpet alone, radiating confidence with that flawless, practiced smile. To the cameras, it looked effortless. To those paying attention, it was anything but. This premiere was supposed to be her night, the grand unveiling of Another Simple Favor. Yet the glittering spotlight refused to stay centered on her performance. Instead, it drifted toward the empty space by her side. The absence of Ryan Reynolds wasn't subtle, it was loud, unavoidable, and instantly became the headline. What should have been a celebration of her work transformed into speculation about what or who was missing.
Insiders are spilling on the real reason why Ryan Reynolds left Blake Lively alone on the red carpet amid the Anna Kendrick beef, and it's all about
no red carpet embraces. No subtle hand-holding. Not even a glimpse of that trademark power couple energy the world had come to expect. And let's not pretend this was simply a matter of scheduling. This is Ryan Reynolds we're talking about, the same man who somehow manages to juggle owning a soccer team, pulling elaborate pranks on fellow celebrities, and flooding Instagram with spontaneous, over-the-top posts. But when it came to standing beside his wife at one of her biggest premieres, suddenly, he's too busy. Hard to believe. The media wasted no time diving in. Commentators and fans alike were split. Was this a meticulously crafted publicity stunt, or the unraveling of one of Hollywood's most admired marriages playing out in real time? In reality, the truth sat somewhere in the middle. According to reports from a Daily Mail insider, the couple had already reached a critical decision. If they wanted to safeguard their careers, they needed to step out separately. That high-profile SNL appearance wasn't just a fun throwback night in comedy. It was a deliberate experiment, a stress test to see whether the public would still buy into their carefully polished image even without the united front. And the results? Let's just say they sparked more questions, more speculation, and more chaos than even Blake's entire legal strategy team could have prepared for.
Ryan Reynolds not show up? I mean, I'm not entirely surprised that he didn't show up, to be perfectly honest, because this was Blake's contractually obligated appearance. She had to.
Think back to the SNL 50th anniversary special. Ryan Reynolds was there, but not in the way fans are used to seeing him. No spotlight, no playful antics, just a man doing his best to disappear in plain sight. Sitting quietly, he looked more like an observer than a guest, as if hoping the cameras would pass right over him and the storm around his personal life wouldn't follow him into that room. But then, in true live television fashion, Amy Poehler casually tossed his name into the mix with a simple, "Ryan Reynolds, how's it going?" On the surface, it was light and harmless. Yet his instant reply, "Why? What have you heard?" hit with a very different weight. That wasn't just quick humor. It was the reflex of someone who knew the headlines were circling, who understood just how fragile the narrative had become, and who was bracing for the next strike. In that single unscripted moment, the mask slipped and the world saw just how much pressure was simmering beneath the surface.
How's it going?
Great. Why? What have you heard?
That wasn't harmless small talk, that was Ryan Reynolds in pure survival mode. The awkward exchange, the forced smile, the clipped "hi, hey," wasn't witty banter. It was panic disguised as comedy. He knew exactly what awaited once the cameras cut away, the cold stares, the whispered judgments, and yes, even the not-so-subtle backlash brewing in the background, and he wasn't wrong. Fast forward to February 2024, when Ryan and Blake stepped back into the SNL spotlight. Maybe they hoped time had softened the blow, that people would forget the chaos sparked just a few months earlier, namely, Blake's explosive lawsuit against Justin Baldoni, a legal move that detonated across Hollywood almost overnight. But the room hadn't forgotten. Not at all. Instead of admiration, they were met with icy silence. Sure, there were a few polite claps, the kind that sound more staged than sincere, but the undercurrent in the room told a different story. Discomfort hung in the air like a fog. And then came the breaking point: actual boos from the audience. It was the kind of moment that shifts perception instantly, a visible fracture in the once invincible power couple image. Fans watched in disbelief as the sheen of Hollywood perfection peeled away in real time. And behind the scenes, reports say Blake's anger wasn't directed at the crowd, it was aimed squarely at Ryan. To her, he wasn't projecting loyalty, unity, or strength. Instead, he appeared distant, detached, almost like a man silently counting the minutes until he could leave. For Blake, control has always been her anchor. She needed her partner to stand tall beside her, to play the role of the unwavering husband, reinforcing the brand they built together. But in that moment, Ryan looked less like her ally and more like someone already one step out the door. And for Blake, that was the kind of betrayal For Blake, the expectation seemed clear: Ryan wasn't just a husband, he was supposed to be a constant prop in her narrative. Always present, always smiling on cue, always the polished accessory that reinforced the image she wanted to project. What she didn't account for was that Ryan is more than a supporting role. He has his own career, his own reputation, and his own survival instincts in an industry that thrives on spectacle. After that night, reports suggest Blake pivoted quickly into damage control mode. Behind closed doors, whispers circulated that she began framing Ryan as the problem, saying he wasn't taking her lawsuit with the gravity she demanded. His calm demeanor, which might have been a deliberate strategy to steady the chaos, was instead painted as indifference. In Blake's telling, it wasn't the lawsuit itself, one of the most explosive and ill-fated legal maneuvers Hollywood had seen in years, that backfired. No, the blame shifted to Ryan for not mirroring her spiral. As if his refusal to set fire to his own livelihood alongside hers was somehow disloyalty. The irony is striking. In her world, solidarity meant sacrificing everything, even common sense. For Ryan, that was never an option. And that difference in perspective may have been the moment the cracks between them grew too deep to hide.
She does not want to have a family with no income, and she knows that Ryan's career has so far survived the fall.
Now this is where the story takes a sharp turn. After the chaos of the SNL appearance, Blake knew she couldn't just wait for the headlines to fade. She needed a reset, and in Hollywood, there's no cleaner reset button than a red carpet comeback. A flawless entrance, perfectly styled, smiling for the cameras. It's the industry's most reliable way of saying, everything's fine. I'm thriving. The noise doesn't touch me. But there was one obstacle she couldn't ignore: Ryan Reynolds. After the visible tension at SNL, Blake knew bringing him back into the spotlight was a massive risk. All it would take was a single uneasy expression, one awkward body language cue, and the illusion she was rebuilding would shatter in seconds. So, she made a calculated choice. Rather than gamble on Ryan's cooperation, she erased the variable entirely. Blake stepped onto the carpet alone, betting the public would assume Ryan was simply caught up in work. The truth, however, was far more deliberate. By sidelining him, she was protecting her brand, ensuring the spotlight stayed firmly on her terms: no distractions, no slip-ups, no chance of their unraveling being caught on camera. It was a bold move, but also a revealing one. In Hollywood, sometimes survival means choosing the image over the marriage.
I wasn't surprised that Ryan wasn't there. It wasn't his movie. It was weird that Ryan was there and it ends with us. If he shows up to every one of her movies that has nothing to do with, I think it would be worse reaction.
Blake's gamble hinged on perception. She wasn't worried about people whispering, maybe he's deliberately staying away. She wanted them to shrug it off and say, "Oh, Ryan must be busy with work." That explanation kept the illusion intact, clean, simple, believable. And for Ryan, that narrative worked perfectly. In fact, it was exactly what he needed. Behind the scenes, reports from the Daily Mail suggest he had already begun reassessing his entire public alignment with Blake. He wasn't just calculating the next appearance, he was weighing the cost of being tethered to a controversy that showed no signs of cooling down. Ryan understood something critical. Every red carpet, every joint outing, every shared photo tied him closer to a scandal that wasn't his. And for a man with global franchises, business ventures, and a carefully crafted public brand, that kind of association was more than inconvenient, it was dangerous.
Career has so far survived the fallout. I would agree with that. It has. He's still going to be Deadpool. He's not going to lose gigs. I do think Blake will have a tougher time getting.
Let's step back for a second. This is Ryan Reynolds we're talking about, the Hollywood golden boy. His entire career has been built on quick wit, effortless charm, and steering clear of scandal. He's clean, marketable, and one of the rare actors the industry and the public can agree on. And suddenly, he's standing in the blast radius of a scandal spiraling out of control. While Blake is burning bridges and throwing accusations that land like grenades, Ryan seems to be quietly calculating. His thought process: I'm not letting my career implode over this. And it makes sense. The man isn't just an actor, he's an empire. With lucrative businesses, global sponsorships, and Deadpool 3 gearing up for a July release, his image is worth millions. Protecting that brand is survival, and no amount of marital loyalty outweighs the risk of letting someone else's chaos drag it down. Blake, on the other hand, doesn't have the same safety net. According to insiders, she's been scrambling behind closed doors, deeply afraid the lawsuit fallout could get her blacklisted in an industry that values reputation as much as talent. And the fear isn't unfounded. Her recent projects haven't exactly dominated the box office, meaning her power has always leaned heavily on her image, the polished, wholesome America's sweetheart persona that kept her relevant. But here's the problem: once that image cracks, there's nothing left to shield her. No billion-dollar franchises. No global brand endorsements. Just the slow fade of star power slipping through her hands. And Blake knows it, which only makes her fight to control the narrative even more desperate.
Will have a tougher time getting gigs, not because of a retaliation campaign, but because of her demanding authorship. Go make your own movies, Blake. Go make your own movie. You have the funds, the support, apparently. You have Hollywood friends who have your back.
Exactly, and that's why insiders say Blake has been pushing Ryan to step up publicly, to stand beside her and Project Unity. For her, his presence isn't about marriage, it's about optics. She wants Hollywood to believe she still has influence, credibility, and command of the narrative. But Ryan, he isn't buying into that performance. He's seen the fallout that comes with staying too close when her strategies implode. Take Justin Baldoni as the prime example. A respected director with a solid reputation, until he refused to bend to Blake's demands. Practically overnight, he was recast as the villain in her story, a career reputation scorched not by evidence, but by proximity to her narrative. Ryan has been paying attention, and is far too savvy to let history repeat itself. He knows Blake's brand is sinking, and is not willing to let his own empire go down with it. That's why his absence at the film premiere isn't just a scheduling conflict. It's strategy. It's distance. It's Ryan deliberately stepping out of the blast zone before the explosion gets any bigger. And perhaps the most revealing detail of all? Blake knows it. That's why she's doubling down, carefully crafting the image of the strong, independent woman who doesn't need anyone at her side. But beneath the surface, the reality is harder to ignore. She needs Ryan's support now more than ever, because without it, her standing is crumbling. And the storm didn't stop there. Blake thought she had the script locked when she filed her lawsuit against Baldoni in December 2023. In her mind, Hollywood would rally instantly. She expected Baldoni to be blacklisted, her reputation elevated, her role as a feminist figure cemented. But that's not how the story unfolded. Instead, the backlash spread like wildfire, and the fallout only grew more severe. Then came the twist no one predicted. Baldoni didn't just defend himself, he countered with staggering force. A $400 million countersuit that didn't just challenge Blake's claims but dismantled them in one devastating legal strike. Overnight, the case shifted from Hollywood gossip to one of the most high-stakes celebrity legal showdowns in recent memory. And just when it seemed Blake had already hit rock bottom, The ground beneath her
She was, yeah,
collapsed
Blake
even
Lively's
further.
done awful things to Justin and needs to pay the price in court. We'll find it out.
But here's the problem.
February 2024 brought a twist no one in Hollywood was ready for. Justin Baldoni didn't just push back against the allegations, he came out swinging with a staggering $250 million lawsuit against the New York Times. His claim? That the paper had played an active role in a coordinated smear campaign against him before Blake Lively ever went public with her accusations. In other words, the article wasn't documenting a scandal, it was fueling one. That revelation turned the entire case on its head. Suddenly, Blake wasn't the wronged party fighting to protect her reputation. She looked like the architect of an elaborate scheme, one so tangled it collapsed under its own contradictions. What began as a courtroom battle started resembling a discarded Gossip Girl subplot, only this time, the stakes were painfully real, and then, the chaos escalated further. Blake, once branded Hollywood's untouchable sweetheart, found herself at the center of a cheating scandal. Behind the scenes, she had reportedly pursued Baldoni with relentless persistence, sending him flirty, often cringeworthy messages, even commenting bizarrely on his workout videos with lines like, "Try it pregnant." This wasn't playful banter. To witnesses, it looked like obsession. Baldoni, a married man, rejected her advances. But instead of moving on, Blake doubled down. On set, she allegedly pushed for more romantic scenes, pressured script changes, and created an uncomfortable environment that others noticed. When none of it worked, she escalated yet again, manufacturing a fake voicemail. Experts later revealed it was an AI-generated recording meant to sound like Baldoni apologizing. The ruse collapsed almost instantly, metadata was inconsistent, audio was glitchy, and forensic analysts flagged it as a forgery. What had once been a PR disaster now edged into potential criminal territory. Fraud charges were suddenly on the table. Ryan Reynolds, meanwhile, was said to be devastated. He had believed he was protecting his wife, standing by her side as she faced scrutiny. But now it looked like he'd been misled along with everyone else. And the breaking point came with one final, desperate stunt. Reports claim Blake invited Baldoni to her penthouse under the guise of a script meeting, only for him to arrive and find Ryan Reynolds and Taylor Swift already waiting. The plan, it seems, was to corner him into agreeing to her project, using two of the biggest names in entertainment as leverage, but the move backfired spectacularly. Baldoni walked away unfazed. While Ryan finally saw the full picture, he wasn't protecting an innocent partner, he was being used as a pawn in a vendetta. The fallout was swift. Taylor Swift, once one of Blake's closest allies, cut ties completely. No photos, no posts, no public support. Radio silence. And when Swift pulled away, the rest of Hollywood followed. Suddenly, the endorsements that once kept Blake's image sparkling began to wobble. L'Oreal was reportedly rethinking its partnership, Chanel quietly distanced itself, and directors stopped returning her calls. The career she had spent years polishing into a symbol of elegance and control was now reduced to ashes. In trying to dismantle someone else's reputation, Blake had shattered her own. And in the process, she may have dragged Ryan down with her. But insiders whisper that Reynolds is already plotting his exit, unwilling to sink with the ship Blake Lively's career has become.
It wasn't fulfilling for me, that I wanted to be a part of the storytelling, that I wanted to be a part of the narrative, whether that be in the writing, in the costume design, in creating the character.
Now let's look at the harshest reality of Blake's career. Its collapse isn't tied to some industry vendetta. Hollywood doesn't need grudges, it simply moves on the second it senses weakness. And right now, Blake looks weaker than ever. Studios aren't backing away out of malice, but because she's no longer considered a safe investment. Directors aren't refusing her calls to punish her, they're avoiding the risk of inviting lawsuits, script rewrites, and on-set tension that follows her name like a shadow. Here's the irony. While Blake's reputation smolders, Justin Baldoni, the very man she tried to dismantle, is quietly staging a comeback. The industry that once kept him at arm's length is now welcoming him back. Not because Hollywood suddenly fell in love with him, but because he's proven he can deliver. He has talent, consistency, and now, a redemption arc that executives find irresistible. Hollywood hates feeling manipulated, and once Blake's narrative unraveled, the tide turned almost overnight. It's a story soaked in poetic justice. Blake set out to destroy a man who simply didn't return her interest. She spun headlines, distorted facts, and even forged evidence in her pursuit. But in the end, it wasn't Baldoni's career that crumbled, it was hers. Today, her circle of influence is shrinking, her career options are drying up, and the brand she spent years cultivating has all but vanished. And Ryan Reynolds? Insiders say he's finally connecting the dots. The real betrayal in this saga wasn't Baldoni's rejection or Hollywood's cold shoulder, it was Blake's deception within their marriage. He stood by her in good faith, only to realize he was being pulled into a spiral of her own making. That's where things stand today. But make no mistake, this story is still unfolding. The legal battles, the reputational fallout, the career moves yet to come, none of it is over. If anything, the next chapter could be even messier. So, what do you think? Is Blake's Hollywood chapter closing for good, or is there a comeback hiding somewhere in the wreckage? Drop your thoughts below, hit like, and subscribe, because this saga is only getting started.